Professor Helen Wallace, you're here today at the Auto World Museum to talk about the situation of security and what Europe needs to do. We're facing a number of challenges. What do you think is the most important action for Europe to take at this point?
I think we all need to learn better how to describe the security problems that surround us and begin to develop a more shared understanding of what those security challenges are and how we might then take them forward. We know that we as Europeans have not always got things right in our external action in the past, and some of that we suffer for now, as in the case of Iraq and Libya.
One of the biggest challenges we're looking at in the imminent future is the situation that we have in the Crimea with Russia. Very volatile situation, a situation that we didn't really think that we would see post-Cold War. What is the way to resolve the situation or make it a more livable situation?
It's a very tricky situation in the Crimea in Ukraine, isn't it? Because I don't know whether you've been to Crimea. I've been to Crimea. It feels very... I went long before the annexation. It felt very Russian then. It's somewhere that Russians think of as part of theirs. While it also was assigned to the Republic of Ukraine for quite strange reasons at the end of the Second World War. I think we were all a bit naive at the end of the Cold War and thinking, well, that's that then, and that's all fine, and we can all live happily alongside each other. We've seen that Russia now has a quite aggressive leadership and a strangely functioning internal governance. And Ukraine is a complicated country which we West Europeans haven't understood terribly well. So I think we need to scratch our heads and do better.
Are there any specific policies or approaches you would like to see the European Union adopt?
I'd like to see us find a way of managing the discussion with and about Russia in a more focused way than we have. It has been a problem that different member states have had different kinds of relationship with Russia, and that's impeded collective agreement. And I think it's also the case that we're not sure, beyond the limited sanctions effort we've made so far, what ways of putting pressure on Russia make a difference.
On internal security, terrorism has reared its ugly head in Europe, and particularly over this last summer. People are very anxious. We see a stronger security presence in our European cities. What action would you like the EU to be taking in this particular domain?
It's not obvious that it's EU-level action that we're talking about. A lot of the issues about guarding against terrorist events lies on local authorities, the governments in the countries where they occur, the authorities in the communities where there seem to be risks. And we know, and you must know from your accent, you must know, that in the case of the Irish terrorist incidents that we all put up with in the United Kingdom, it's very hard. If there are angry people who are prepared to take dramatic action, it's hard to guard against that. What I think at a European Union collective level we need to do is to think much more carefully about how we use the language about terrorism and about Muslims and the Muslim communities, because it doesn't help us to stigmatise whole communities when terrorist incidents, as we know, are caused by small bands of dedicated people.
We've seen the UK referendum come to pass and the prospect of an exit from the UK from the EU. What impact do you think that will have on this particular area of policy, the area of defence?
It's an interesting question as to how far the defence jigsaw puzzle is going to change. Having Britain outside the European Union means that you've got away from the table one of the most persistent critics of setting up new defence machinery on a collective EU basis, because the British have always tended to much prefer a synergy with NATO rather than new European capacity. That will test then whether or not the 27 remaining member states of the European Union actually want to do things and to invest in more effort. The British are leading one of the main military missions at the moment, the Atalanta mission off the Somali coast. That will have to be looked at again. It's possible for non-EU member states to involve themselves in EU missions, but to direct them is another question. That would be a pity because it's been a very smooth running, successful operation. And without Britain at the centre of the European Union game, you lose the voice, the experience and the assets of one of the best endowed countries in Europe from a defence and military point of view.
We've seen a lot of cooperation already between the French and the British, sharing of aircraft carriers, selling of equipment between the two nations. How will that work post-Brexit?
That bilateral cooperation, and it operates with other European countries as well, is not contingent on membership of the European Union at all. What it is contingent on is good feelings towards each other, trust and confidence that enable relevant military units from a couple of countries to build up agreements together. So it's still possible to do as long as the Brexit negotiations go forward in a mutually respectful way rather than an angry way.